We now move to the second step of our data modeling process, which involves identifying and adding all the required relationships between pairs of entities. Relationships often appear as verbs between nouns, such as rate is assigned to customer, or customer uses meters, or bills are sent to customer. The cardinalities are typically described by singular and plural of entity nouns connected by relationship verbs in one or more sentences. A rate is assigned to customer indicates that each customer has one rate. Many customers can be assigned the same rate, on the other hand, indicates that a single rate can be associated with multiple customers, such as residential customers in the same neighborhood. As usual, minimum cardinalities are more difficult to detect than the maximum. When meter is first placed in service, there is no associated readings. That sentence indicates that a reading is optional for meter, at least at the beginning. Words like required, as in a customer is required to have a meter, indicate a mandatory relationship between customer and meter. So, the prominent verbs connecting our entities are shown at the top of this slide right here. Customer uses meters, number one. Number two, rate is assigned to customers. Number three, bill is sent to customer and includes reading. That's going to be a key part that's sort of subtle and not totally obvious. And finally, meter is read by an employee. Okay, so the last two, the meter was read by an employee and the bill includes reading, are less straightforward when compared to the previous ones. The bill includes reading, right? This piece here associates bill with readings on which it is based. Without two consecutive readings to determine the water consumption, a bill could not be constructed. So this is one of the subtle but key relationships that is not obvious at first. The meter is read by employee one is a relationship between a reading done by an employee as an attribute and the meter. It sounds better than meter is read by reading, which is really what it is, at least initially. Next, we precisely define, including from, to, the name of, and minimum and maximum cardinalities for each of these relationships. Okay, over the most of the remaining slides in the presentation, and we'll ultimately then end up with the initial ERD. So let's start with customer uses meter, or so-called uses relationship. The fact that a single customer, presumably a commercial one, can have one or more meters make this a one-to-m or one-to-many relationship for customer to meter. A customer has at least one meter. Otherwise, it's not a customer. So a meter is required for a customer. A meter must also be used by a customer. So a customer is required for a meter as well. We will relax this assumption later on, making a customer optional to the relationship, i.e. allowing idle or unused meters before they are put into use and attached to customers. Okay, so let's switch back to the ERD from the previous recording. And what we'll first do, we'll save it as ERD 602, second diagram, WU, and then so instead of initial entities, we'll set adding underscore relationships. So that way you preserve the original entity diagram. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move entities around a little bit until we have a rate at the left of the customer. Okay, then we have customer next, followed by meter. Okay, reading under the meter more or less, and the bill under the customer more or less. We're going to have to extend this diagram window a bit and then save those changes. Then let's start with the first relationship. Insert a new has relationship, okay, between one customer, okay, and and multiple meters, right? Again, for presumably commercial customers. Because both entities are mandatory, okay, make sure to select this on the customer meter, close it, and then of course you have to sort of mess around to make it kind of look better, and then save the changes. Okay, we'll switch back to the presentation. Okay, and review, see that uses a relationship in the top right corner of the current slide. And let's move on to the next one, that is assigned to relationship, which is the one that's next. Okay, since many customers can be assigned the same rate. Okay, this is again a one-to-many relationship from rate to customer. One rate can be assigned to many customers, as I just said. Since a customer has to have a rate, again, otherwise it's really not a customer, a rate is required for a customer. We emphasize the fact that the rates are independently set by the State's Water Commission utility, long in advance of being associated with a particular customer. This means that some of the rates might not necessarily be assigned to customers, okay? i.e., a customer is not required for a rate. Okay, so rate is required for a customer, and customer is not required for a rate. Okay, so let's switch back to diagram and insert the second relationship called assigned to with a capital T. Okay, and this is the relationship between, on one hand, one rate, okay, can be assigned to, as we said, many customers. Okay, we just emphasize the fact, all right, that okay, the rate is mandatory or required for the customer. If the customer doesn't have a rate, is really not a customer, whereas the customer is optional for the rate. In other words, rate can exist independently, as set by the utility commission of these of the customers. So we'll close that and we'll move around to sort of make it look similar to the one on the slide. Save the changes, switch back to the slide, and verify it sort of looks like that. Okay, and then this is a good place to pause before we continue with the remaining relationships.